And Director of Animal Training for SeaWorld at Orlando. Her primary responsibilities include overseeing the physical health, the behavior modification, and enrichment for all the animals at SeaWorld. Her multifaceted training and performing experience includes all animal excuse me, all animal species housed at the park, from sea otters to killer whales, and of course her Australian cattle dog, Rain. Rain. Well, that happens. Name 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 Ranger. Thanks, Lynn. Whatever it takes. Um, she has been at SeaWorld for a quarter of a century and is the recipient of several international marine animal training and zoological behavior and animal welfare awards. She's a 1987 recipient of animal science and graduate from, and I was told to say, the Ohio State University. See, there are a lot of them here. And if I may add, those animals, I think, intuitively know they better not mess around with an Irish lady. And at this time, please welcome Kelly Flaherty Clark.
Okay, he told me to start talking and he was going to set my level. Are we all good? Can you hear me? Higher? They want it higher. I can't see him. I think he's behind a secret door. Ooh, that's a little too high. Come on down. Okay, so I will just talk because actually we were having such great conversation at the table that we ate into the time a little bit. I'm going to be probably talking a little bit faster than you want me to. If you want me to slow down, wave your hand. Because this is a presentation that I often give to MBAs that come to Mark. Do we want to turn this off and just have me try without? Let's try that. Oh, is that the problem? Or I could stand at the podium. No. How's that? I have an echo. How's that? Do I still have an echo? No? We're good? Okay. That sounds fine. Well, if it ends up being a problem, I will scream or I can come closer to you or something. We'll figure it out. Anyway, this is me. And Paul added that bit about the Irish. I'm also half Italian, so it's quite a mixture. An Irish Italian. My mother was, yeah. So that's probably even makes it a little bit more volatile, my personality. But anyway, that's me. That's who I am. And that's what I cover. And this is me a quarter century ago when I first started at SeaWorld as an apprentice trainer in 1987. I've been there for 25 years. I was on my way to The Ohio State University's veterinary school when I made a stop at SeaWorld and said, wow, I need to be here. This is what I'm built to do. I thought I'd do it for a couple years and then go back to vet school. Now I work very closely with the vets, but I have found my passion. Our core purpose at SeaWorld is to inspire people through the power of entertainment, to celebrate, connect, and care with the natural world we share. And there are a lot of different departments at SeaWorld, but for me, this is one really easy for me to follow. I have no problem identifying with the core purpose because it's basically what animal training at SeaWorld is about. I have 4 areas that I am in charge of, and those are animal ambassadors, sea lion, otter, walrus, whale and dolphin, and Shamu Stadium. I'd love to know who's been to SeaWorld. Oh, that feels great. So some of this is going to feel, some of this is going to be just like walking through the park. No pun intended. So here's the Animal Ambassador Program. And if you've been to SeaWorld, maybe you've had the opportunity to see these guys. They walk around outside of the parks. They also do a lot of our media. We can't bring Shamu to a media event or to a hospital for children or to a school for people to learn about. So we have a whole group of multi-species animals, and they walk around the park with our animal experts and educate our guests. They kind of provide provide the unexpected in the park. I What I did was I put one little shot of my favorite thing about each one of the areas, and this is my favorite thing. And I'm really I just took this with my cell phone one day. I just thought it was the neatest thing, and of course I sent it along to marketing. And anyone who has experience in marketing would see very quickly why they didn't want to use it. The young lady's tag is showing on the back of her shirt. So while that screams SeaWorld to me, we weren't able to use it for anything. I just thought it was really neat. Then there's Sea Lion Outer and Walrus Stadium, and I heard from Paul that you guys like to continue learning, so I'm going to teach you a couple things today. Some of you, if you've ever worked in the animal world, will understand this numerical system. We have 14.0 sea lions, 1.1 walrus, and 8.6 otters. Does anybody know what the numbers mean? No, it's a sex ratio. Right, so if you've dealt with birds, certainly if you've ever dealt with birds, there's also usually a number there. And sometimes when our otters have just given birth, there's a number at the end. The sex ratio is males first. Why? Because a man probably came up with the system. It's the only thing I can think of. Then females, and then unknown. So there was a point where we had like 6.6.4 otters, right? So because we didn't know what the sex of the otters were. At Sea Lion and Otter Stadium, there's that Clyde and Seymour Take Pirate Island, which is the picture you just saw. We also do Sea Lions Tonight, which is a great show in the evening, which covers, it's like spoof of all the entertainment you've seen in the park. And then at Christmas time, we've just in the last couple years added Clyde and Seymour's Christmas Countdown. Great to take kids to. If you have any grandchildren out there you want to bring to be entertained, it's a great, great show with a little peek at Santa Claus at the very end. So we do 3 different shows in this one venue. My favorite thing right now today about Sea Lion and Otter Stadium is our Asian otter kits. We do have a very prolific breeding program. And the breeding program, these animals are in the SSP, which is a species survival plan. And SeaWorld participates in that plan by moving about the country and the world to make sure that the genetic influence is where it needs to be. Whale and Dolphin Stadium is the home of Blue Horizons. It's the home of 0.1 false killer whales, 8.0 dolphins. Okay? So what sex is the false killer? Female. She's a female, yes. Got it. Okay. Also, very recently, a new member came. And I'm going to tell a quick story because so many people have come up to me asking me about everything that's in the media right now. Some of you may remember a glimpse. They don't usually give the great things a whole lot of attention, but several months ago, a lot of pilot whales beached themselves in the Florida Keys, and SeaWorld was there. We went down and we took care of the animals. 5 of them did survive. 2 of them went straight back to the ocean as soon as we could get them there, and that's our goal with any animal that we're trying to help out. 3 of them still needed a whole lot of intensive care. 1 because it was a calf. It was dependent on its mother, and we had to teach her how to eat. First tube feeding her gruel, and then teaching her how to eat. She is doing exceptionally well, and she is now housed at Whale and Dolphin Stadium. Oh. Okay, she was deemed non-releasable because she was too young, so she didn't learn the things she needed to learn from her family, or from her mom and the rest of the pod. We taught her how to eat, so the likelihood of her being able to hunt and survive is very slim. The government decided she was non-releasable. There's another animal that's still in critical care at SeaWorld, and we're hoping that she will be able to join her friend at Whale and Dolphin Stadium. But right now, that animal's doing great with some of our dolphins and our false killer whale. This stadium houses Blue Horizons, and that's the only show that is performed there. Has anyone seen Blue Horizons? Yeah. Okay, it's a little bit newer. If you haven't been at the park in the last 4 or 5 years, then you haven't seen it yet. Totally changed the way we look at our animal shows. We looked at this show and decided we want to inspire people to learn more. And there are a lot of places in the stadium and in the park where they can then, having been inspired, learn a lot more about the animals. So there's not a whole lot of talking in the show. It's done to a soundtrack. That's my favorite thing at Whale and Dolphin. Starbuck was with me 25 years ago in Ohio, and he's still there. He's an amazing animal, and I just had to put his picture in here because he's great. Okay, Shamu Stadium. We have 3.4 killer whales, 3 males, 4 females. There are 3 different shows that are performed at Shamu Stadium. One Ocean is our newest show. If you haven't been to SeaWorld in the last year, you haven't seen One Ocean. Fantastic show. Very colorful, very upbeat. Just really makes you think about your impact on the world and pretty much equips you with, you better get out there and do something about it. You know, we've made the world the way it is. Let's go out and make a change, and everybody can make a change. Why do we want to make the change? Because of these amazing creatures we share our planet with. Shamu Rocks is what happens at night. It's louder, it's exciting, it's rock and roll. People love it during the summertime, and it runs seasonally. And if you haven't been to SeaWorld at Christmas, you have to come. Miracles is our Christmas show. And SeaWorld really goes ahead and celebrates Christmas. We do celebrate the holidays, but there is a lot of Christmas that is in the holiday season at the SeaWorld Park, and Miracles is an example of that show. Makayo, he's my extra slide for Shamu Stadium. He was born, he just turned a year, and this is him about 36 hours after he was born. Here he is, about a week old. You can see how long and lean he is. When a killer whale first comes out, they don't have a lot of that blubber. They're 300 pounds when they're born, right? So that's already pretty big for her to pass. So he does a lot of growing. I do have one quick picture in here of him nursing. A lot of people ask us about, they are mammals. That, if you look very closely at that slide, you can see a clot of milk. Her mammary glands are located at that part of her body. It's really fascinating to watch them nurse. It's a behavior that they learn how to do, and curl their tongue up and suckle on, but they're mammals just like you and I are. And he has grown. That milk is extremely rich, and he has grown quite a bit. There he is, bowing next to his mom. This picture was taken just a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, that's Gatina. This is her 7th calf, and she makes very round calves. Her milk must just be exceptional. He has started eating food, and if you come to One Ocean, you will see him perform. He is in the show next to Mom and has been ever since he was just a couple days old. Okay, so here's the learning part. If you want to take a nap, now's a good time. We're going to talk a little bit about behavior, and I might. I am talking really quickly. We're good. I'm getting through it. I was going to say I might skip some of it. If I see some of you nodding off, that's when I'll do that. Okay, so behavior's ABCs is pretty much the way I talk about it. It's a cyclical event. Behavior has an antecedent, it has a behavior itself, and then there's a consequence. And this runs in everybody's lives. It runs with the animals at SeaWorld. Behavior is a cyclical event. I know now I'm getting nervous because I'm talking in front of a psychologist here. Okay. So, but it's cyclical. And I usually, when I talk about behavior and how cyclical it is, I like to use my dog ranger, because if I'm talking to a group of people who haven't worked with killer whales, it's a really good way. Most people have been around a dog. My dog has been conditioned to ring a bell if he wants to go outside. And I started this when he was just a puppy, because when he was just a puppy, I had an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And I didn't want to be cleaning up all the time. So I thought I could hear the bell, and that way he could tell me that he needed to piddle. So I trained him to ring the bell. I trained him that ringing the bell would open the door. So for my dog, the antecedent is ringing the bell. The behavior is the door gets opened. Okay, I open the door. Or for my dog, the antecedent can be, I feel the need to piddle. His behavior is, I'm going to open the door. Okay, I'm going to ring the bell, excuse me. There's also behavior going on with Mom. The antecedent is, I hear the bell, right? My behavior is, I get to the door. Okay, so the antecedent is a cue or signal or stimulant in the animal's environment, either mine or my dog's. Then there's the behavior, and behavior has 2 ways of being expressed. There's the observable. He puts his nose on the bell. That's the movement. That's the observable behavior. What's not observable is he's feeling the anxiety of, I don't want to piddle on the floor. My behavior, the observable is getting to the door. The non-observable is the anxiety, I don't want to clean up a mess, right? So what is the consequence? The door opens, the dog goes out, he piddles. The door opens is the dog's consequence. Him piddling and me not having to clean it up is my consequence. So it's completely cyclical. Yeah. Absolutely. More than happy to slow it down. I'm just afraid I won't get it in by the time you guys want to go home. Okay, I will slow it down. So I'm actually excited that you would want me to slow this part down. clearly the MBAs are like, you guys are much more interested in learning than they are. Okay, well, that's fantastic to hear. So the consequence is what happens, it's what is immediately following the behavior. So I've kind of tried to show you that there's two different events happening there, and what the dog's consequence is different than my consequence, but it goes right back into another antecedent or another behavior, and it's just constantly going. At SeaWorld, we focus on consequence because consequence is ultimately what motivates behavior. It's the genesis for motivation of behavior of trained animals and also human beings. There's a reason I'm standing up here in high heels, and that's not because I love to wear high heels. It's because I have spent 25 years wearing socks on pavement. And I'm a shrimp. I'm about 5'2", 5'1". But I was told, as I moved up the ranks, how professional I looked when I wore high heels. Okay? That shaped my behavior. Now, if I'm ever doing a presentation or I want to be professional, I'm going to an important meeting with the president of the park, I'm in high heels because it gives me some confidence. I've been trained by other people. I've also been trained by a group of wolves I was working with. I was sent up to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, to work with some wolves. And when I went, Thad Lasinik was the guy who sent me up there, and he said, you know, Kelly, I know you haven't worked with wolves before, but behavior is behavior, I say, pointing to the psychologist. And you'll get it. Just go ahead up there. And so I went, and I worked with these wolves, and I was there for about 18 months. I was going up for a week, every 6 weeks, mentoring these people who were working with the wolves, designing a show, and it all was going very well. And in one of the 6-week periods, when I left, they had these little pups. And when I came back, the pups had grown up a bit. Now, what I knew about behavior was that wolves, like a lot of dogs, do something called muzzle greeting. They like to be right up in your face. And the best thing to do when you're working with a wolf who's not a domesticated dog is allow them to do it, right? Just put your chin up a little bit, but allow them to go ahead and greet you. This is a way they greet one another, and they just want to see who you are. And that's perfectly fine. So I went up, and I said, hey, I really want to go in with the pups. I just want to have a good time, had a long flight. And they're like, Kelly, they're grown a little bit. Are you sure you want to just go in with them? I was like, yeah. So they got their cameras out. You'd have to look really close to see. I am having a great time, but they're both trying to muzzle greet me at the same time, and if you look closely at that picture, you will see a stream of blood pouring down. Okay? Whose fault is that? Yours. Mine. It's mine, right? Because and what did it teach me? I'm not going in with the 2 pups anymore. It wasn't a dangerous situation at all. They just kept bonking me and finally my tooth cut my lip because so my consequence was I made the choice behaviorally. I decided to go in there based on my previous experience. The consequence wasn't great. I learned not to do that again, right? It was a negative consequence. One you can be a little bit more familiar with is this one here. Okay, right. If you've ever gotten a ticket, it might slow you down everywhere, but I am probably pretty sure that where you got that ticket is where you now get anxious, right? Right? Because that's where they got you. Now you've associated that, and you can feel your palms starting to sweat, you're checking your gauge, you know. And then there's me. Paul saw what I drove, and he saw when I came in, he said, oh, I like your car. It's a Mustang GT, 8 cylinders, and I didn't get a ticket the first 9 times I was stopped. So you know what that does to your I didn't have any anxiety. I had no fear because I had no negative consequences.
You had the high heels
I had the high heels on. And that actually relates to the story I'm going to tell. Because the 9th time I got stopped by a woman. And I got a ticket. And I'm going to tell you right now, on Turkey Lake Road, next to the post office, I slow way down. It was a very negative experience for me. So, there's a negative positive consequences and ones that you can all associate. Well, anybody who's had a job and worked, you get a paycheck, right? Your job can be pretty not so fun at times, but you get your paycheck. That's a positive consequence for your work. You're likely to go again. If you're thinking about what's going to happen if I don't get that paycheck, negative consequences, right? So we focus on the consequence. And the consequence for behavior at SeaWorld is either reinforcement or lack of reinforcement. What we do is we provide only positive reinforcement when we're training with our animals, okay? We don't punish them. We don't apply negative reinforcement, only positive reinforcement. And if you leave only learning two things today, one of them will be the numerical nomenclature in the zoo world. The other one is we feed the animals at SeaWorld not based on their behavior. We feed the animals at SeaWorld based on their physiological need. Katina is a killer whale who is nursing a calf. She eats about 225 pounds of food a day. Kayla is an adult female who is not nursing a calf right now, and she eats about 120 pounds of food a day. And they receive that food regardless of their behavior. It's really important for all of you to hear me say that. I would not take my paycheck if that wasn't the case, okay? So they receive their food no matter what, and they know they're going to receive it as long as they're willing to come over. So what do we count on? Food, primary reinforcement, is something that an animal needs to have in order to survive, and we don't limit those things, right? As human beings, we need, for our species to survive, we need air, water, shelter, access to the opposite sex, right? We don't, and food, right? We don't not give that to all of our animals at SeaWorld. But there's a whole group of reinforcement that we do use, and if you've been to SeaWorld, you've seen this. The secondary reinforcers, or conditioned reinforcers. This is a conditioned reinforcer for you guys, right? This experience. You come here, it has been reinforcing in the past, and so you came today thinking the food is going to be good, and I'm probably going to have somebody here, I'm going to learn a little bit. And so because of your prior experiences, connections with this building, with this facility, with this time of day, and with the email that Paul sent you, are positive. So this is, you don't need this in order to survive. Right? Well, you need the food, but everything else, you don't need it to survive, and yet it's a rewarding experience for you, and it will, I hope it is, it will affect whether you come back or not the next time. Okay? So there are things that we don't need to have in order to survive that affect our behavior. And those are the things we really focus on at SeaWorld. And we're only limited to our own by our own imaginations. This is someone playing with a sea lion with a ball. And each animal is an individual. This is just a visual. You know, have you ever seen these wall walkers? Right? This is another visual, playing slip and slide with the killer whales. Here's some gelatin. They love gelatin. They love to eat gelatin. And this is just, so the reason I put this in there is some people train their dog to hold a treat on the, yeah. That's Augie. He's just a great sea lion. So why do we only use positive reinforcement? Well, certainly it facilitates a positive learning environment, a positive approach to learning. It reduces any kind of stress, right? I sometimes talk about paddling and hitting children when I get to this part of my talk. Because you can see it out there in the public. The kid who does this or who is wincing, right? There's precursors associated with it. There's none of that happens when you're working with whales, dolphins, even otters. And there's really good reason for it. The best reason is we don't want that stress. There are a lot of other good reasons, which you can figure out on your own, right? 650-pound sea lion, 103-pound woman. Doesn't make sense. It's not smart. It's certainly easier for public relations, and it can be applied so enthusiastically. My trainers are constantly coming up with more that they can reinforce or reward the animals with. And one of the fun things I always say is, I've forgotten more about animal training than you're ever going to learn. But they proved me wrong. They proved me wrong. These guys, that's about the best thing I can say about the kids today, is they are so creative. And they're constantly coming up with new ways to reinforce the animals. So what do we do when the animals don't do what we ask them to do? What do we do with 650 pounds of sea lion, 12,000 pounds of killer whale, or 7 pounds of otter that says, no, not today, I'm not doing that, Kelly? We do nothing. This is our response to incorrect behavior. There's little or no change in the animal's environment. It's applied for 3 seconds, and when it's applied for 3 seconds, it is proven to be very, very effective in decreasing the frequency of a behavior. When we want to see a behavior happen again, we reinforce it. Food, ice, playing, access to another animal, running around, standing on our heads, spitting water, all kinds of things. When we see a behavior that we'd rather not see happen again, we do nothing for 3 seconds. Actually, it works with kids. It works with kids. I've raised both my children, unfortunately, they're human beings, and they can talk back, you know. Nice 3-second response, Mom, you know, that's what I get now. But it does work. It's not as effective. It's not as quick, but it's as effective. That's the way I would approach that. So I have an example now of training, and these are the 4 things, and I am going to go ahead and talk about it. And if you guys get bored, then we'll just stop. But these are 4 things that training animals and training people, we use them both in both fields. You recognize all 4 of these terms, I'm sure. And we had a situation at Sea Lion and Otter Stadium where we were asked by the entertainment team to have the otter and the walrus share the stage at the end of the show. We wanted this grand finale. We want all 3 species out there. We want these 2 species to share the stage together. And we, being animal trainers, the A-type personalities, we're not going to just do that. We're going to train them to cooperate with one another and perform a behavior together. There was only one problem, and that is that the otter and the walrus didn't get along. Now, who do you suppose the antagonist was? Yes. Yeah. Elaine was the otter, and I'll talk about that in just a second. So we use these 4 terms in order to condition these 2 animals to perform a behavior together on stage. First, we had to desensitize them to one another, which meant you have to at least tolerate each other's presence. And then we used generalization, and I'm going to explain this more because I have a video, but just allow me to just touch on it now, and I'll explain it while the video is running. We use generalization in order to condition them away from each other, establish a reinforcement history or some reinforcement time with a certain behavior away from each other, and then we brought them back together, having that reinforcement history established to perform the behavior together. And we did that 3 or 4 different times during the process to finally get the behavior that we wanted. It took about 1 year and 4 months, and the behavior went on to win an international award. Yeah. So, I think I know how to do this. So, okay. Oh, first we'll do the subject. There's Elaine. She was 9 pounds, Asian small-clawed otter, and that's Slowpoke. 2,100 pounds. I'm going to be clicking on a video here. Oh, and you have to watch very closely at the very beginning. It's the only time we caught the aggression on tape. So if you'll watch, the aggression happens from the right to the left, and the otter, oh, I think I have to click on it maybe. Do I? Let's see. Yeah, I think I have to do this. I think now it's going to run. Oh, there we go. Watch very closely right here in the beginning. Maybe. Oh, it went black. That can't be good. There it is. Watch here. Did you hear her? Yeah. So she charged right at it. So the first thing we had to do was teach these 2 animals to share a stage. So we used behaviors that they had a lot of reinforcement history with. And this is where the generalization comes into play. We taught Elaine to climb up onto something and get down, and then she'd be reinforced for coming off of the object. We taught Slowpoke to hold very still while something moved on her back. We were using that brush, and she generalized that feeling. And you'll notice that the reinforcement is applied with the walrus while the animal is in contact with her, and with the otter when you leave the walrus alone. Right? So we just put Slowpoke in all kinds of different positions and just kept rewarding or reinforcing Elaine. Oh, I'm getting too close to that thing. I don't want to block anybody's screen. It's a little grainy at times, isn't it? So here we were teaching the walrus how to park on the side of the pool. And then we asked her to park and hold the brush. Okay? So the brush is playing the part of the otter, and the big iceberg is playing the part of the walrus. And what we're doing here is we're establishing a history with each of the animals, a history of reinforcement. So it's a lot like what I was talking about your experience here today. You've had a good history with this building, and so you come here willingly, and there's that whole reinforcement and history affects all of your progress. So this here is now we're training the animal to swim around the pool. We could teach her to ride on the walrus. Swim around the pool and park. First we train the behavior without the brush. Then we train the behavior with the brush, and then we put the otter on her back. So we trained the walrus to go around the perimeter of the pool. Now walruses don't swim like this. They don't swim with their entire back out of the water. But we needed to be sure that the otter would have somewhere to stand. So we trained the walrus to very precariously carry the brush around. And we asked, the most important part of it was parking, right? Because we needed to be able to get the otter off. Then we trained the otter to hang out on this thing as it floated around. The whole time, the otter was getting a reinforcement history, establishing reinforcement with moving on an object in the water. And then we started inching along. Can hardly hear it. There's the first time she rode, and you can tell she's still looking back at me like, wait a minute, and remember that park behavior? There she is parking, and the otter has an opportunity to get off. So we thought, are we finished, or can we do more? And that's when it hit us that we could take this behavior and their team contingency and their cooperation to a whole nother level. These two actually had shared so much time together and so much reinforcement history together. We thought we could teach one to barrel roll on top of the other. So we started by training Elaine to stay in contact with something that was rotating in the water. And then we started training Slowpoke to keep her entire body out of the water while rotating. So each time we trained a new concept with the animals, we separated them. We established a reinforcement history with it, and then we brought them back together. This would be the first time that we asked her to roll. And you'll notice she has to kind of swim to keep up. There were some fascinating things we found. Once we started having these guys do this behavior and kind of learn it on their own, we saw Elaine creep up more towards the front of Slowpoke. And we saw Slowpoke allowing Elaine to, she would move her flipper out of the way so Elaine could swim and catch up. They knew that the contingency of reinforcement was based on them both performing this behavior together.
Wow, look at that.
See how she let her swim and catch up? And then this was a part of the presentation. Unfortunately, this is the video we took to the international presentation. Unfortunately, we don't have audio, so I'll narrate it for you. The otter said, wait, she's up there blabbing on. Let me tell you what really happened, right? So I was lost in a dream, just taking a nap, and then show a little picture of her dream that she's dreaming. Which is, she's just dreaming, and then along comes this trainer, who is now a native, by the way. got a big salmon for her. She's dreaming. And then she is stricken awake by me saying, Elaine, Elaine, it's time to do the show. Or, and then, come with me, it's time to do the show. And she's very grumpy, and she's like, oh, show, yeah, I'm not a superstar. I know who the superstar is around here. What has he got that I ain't got? All I've got, he gets billboards, and all I get is this lousy styrofoam anchor. Ugh. Okay? So then she says, well, if you can't beat him, maybe you should join him. So she goes out into the stands, and she says, okay, Shamu, show me what you got. There's a trainer, does the barrel roll, and then comes out and says, look how cute I am. Aren't we cute? And she's saying, oh, is that all you got? You just look cute, you wave, and you get billboards? So let me go back and tell my friend, and this is where we put the bloopers. So this is everything that went wrong, or what we caught on film that went wrong. So that was going to get her nowhere, so she came and she whispered to me while I was dreaming. And she said, otter walrus barrel roll. And I wake up and I get this idea. Okay, so I keep making that noise. So this is just more of the bloopers. She's saying, this girl's got too much blubber. This is great because he acts terrified of this. She couldn't get up. She had such a hard time because there was no traction on that thing. So trying to stay up. Ooh. And this is when she gets it, and she says something like, "Okay, hang in there, fatty. Sweetheart. Girlfriend. I can see lights, cameras. Forget the commercials. Somebody book Letterman or something like this." But you see her flipper, her pectoral flipper. She keeps one on her side, and she moves the other one so that Elaine can walk. Right. So Elaine learned, she learned, and we all certainly learned that behavior and training can erase. A very aggressive situation. So that was that. Okay, so what you just saw was an example of how we train show behaviors. And show behaviors are obviously very important to us at SeaWorld. Oh, what happened?
I don't know. Wow.
Okay, well, it's not, I think I know what just happened. And I might be prepared for it. Yes, I think my battery just died. But I have this. Okay. What was his name? Is he still listening to me? I think I have to, this is, okay, so trainers are usually more prepared than I. If this was a beast in front of me, I'd be having no problems. But it's not. It is a beast, but it has its own brain. Okay, so there's that, and now I just need to know where he's plugging things in. Follow this cord. Oh, under here. Okay, we're good. I think we're okay. Let's see. Now hit okay. And now it's locked because I was gone. And then we put the Cincinnati Bengals in here. And look at that. So show behaviors are very important to us at SeaWorld. And they're performed. We train show behaviors to allow guests to experience and appreciate extensions of the animal's natural abilities. If you've been to SeaWorld, you've seen the show behaviors. But what you probably have not seen are a whole series of behaviors that we train that enable us to take care of the animals. Husbandry behaviors are behaviors that we train to allow us to provide for them. And there are an entire slew of husbandry behaviors that we do. The good thing about husbandry is it allows us to look at the animals. We can collect blood, urine, tear samples, fecal cultures, fecal samples, vaginal swabs. I can keep going. It's all that icky stuff, you don't like to go to the doctor and get collected. We collect it from all the animals. The neat thing about these samples is they're collected without any stress. So they're a very true read of what the animal's actual physiological state of being is. Okay? If you go to the doctor and sometimes they say, boy, your blood pressure's kind of high or your heart rate is kind of high. Part of that is the anxiety of being in the doctor's office for some of us. They should never take my blood pressure at the dentist's office. That's where I'm really bad. Oh, why did it do that? I'm here. Okay, we're just going to go. Routine sampling contributes to research and established baselines. I'm sure I don't have to tell all of you. You're local. You understand what SeaWorld does for the zoological community. Everything that people know about killer whales, about the consistency of killer whale milk, for just one of 1,000 examples, they know because we trained our animals to allow us to collect a milk sample from them right after having a baby. And the best thing is, it's a safer environment. Collecting a milk sample with a killer whale, you want to train that behavior. You don't want to try to hold her still while you take a sample from her mammary gland. So these next two slides just kind of happen on their own, but these are just some of the husbandry behaviors that we do. And I have another video, but it is as long as the first one, and I know Paul wanted to make sure you had time for questions. So what I will do is I'll open the floor to questions now, and then if it's okay with you guys, the husbandry video I can show. It's not as exciting or interesting, but it shows you all of the behaviors that we've trained with the animals. It shows a killer whale getting a sonogram, ultrasound. It shows, some of the dental work that we do. It shows us drawing blood on the whales. It shows us weighing the animals and doing mouth exams. But I want to make sure that those of you who have things to do at 1:30 can ask questions, and then we'll show the video after. Does that sound good?
Okay. Well, thank you, Kelly, for a great presentation. And I think with no reservation, can you hear me all right? That I think we should bestow an honorary doctoral degree of animal behavior to Kelly for a great presentation. If there are any questions, I'll walk around and if you raise your hand, I'll walk around and see if you have any questions.
I'm sure most people here will agree with this, but my oldest granddaughter just turned 13. She's extremely bright. If you know Davidson Institute, she's part of that. And she's very interested in coming to SeaWorld. I know you have a number of camps and activities for a very bright, she's already finished 3 credits in high school. What would you suggest for her as a first experience, like behind the scenes?
I would definitely suggest to her something called our resident camp. And that is an overnight camp that she can start thinking about now for next summer. It's a great experience. They either go to the Keys and participate in some research opportunities and ecological things, or there's also a resident camp that happens between SeaWorld and Tampa, where they do animal things right at SeaWorld. So I would suggest that you go to SeaWorld.org or SeaWorld.com and you can connect. But either way, and research those camp opportunities because they're fabulous. They are.
Yes, Kelly. The other day, just a couple days ago, in the Sentinel, there was an article about a killer whale that was brought into SeaWorld for rehabilitation, and there was some controversy over whether it should stay with SeaWorld or be let out in the wild.
Right.
And I was wondering what SeaWorld intends to do about that.
Sure. There's actually 2 different stories that you might be referring to. So let me talk about both of them really quick. The first one is the pilot whales that I talked about a little bit earlier that had beached themselves. 2 of those whales are actually at SeaWorld right now. They were both deemed by the government as non-releasable, meaning that they probably would not stand a good chance of surviving. One of them is because it was a calf who never really learned how to hunt, and the second one because she's so dramatically affected in her spine by the trauma of being beached. Okay, so those 2 whales, will stay at SeaWorld for the duration of their existence. One of them is doing exceptionally well, and we have relocated her to Whale and Dolphin Stadium. Ultimately, we would hope that she would join our other pilot whales in San Diego if the one who's in such critical condition doesn't make it. So our plan is to have the group of pilot whales together. The reason the government allowed SeaWorld to receive the pilot whale and not any other institution is twofold. One is that we are the experts in marine mammal care, and the other is that we do have pilot whales already in our collection and have rehabilitated recently one from Curacao who ended up in San Diego, and his name is Sully. So let's talk now about Morgan, who I think you might be referring to. And Morgan is actually right now residing in Holland. And just recently, the government overturned the activist's attempt to keep Morgan in Holland. Morgan is a less than 3-year-old killer whale who is in pretty much the same situation that I just described. She was found in very shallow waters without her mother. She was still dependent on her mother when she was found. So she has not learned the behavior necessary to be equipped for the wild. So the government decided this animal needs to be in the care of man. The government also decided that killer whale care, SeaWorld is the experts. We have a facility in Laurel Park, which is in Spain, much closer than Holland. We're not trying to get Morgan all the way to the United States. Just want to get her in with other killer whales so that she can hear what killer whales do, see what killer whales do, and understand that this is the species that she is. So our plan is to relocate her to Laurel Park, and that plan was at first slowed down by activists who wanted to keep her right where she was and train her to release. And it just recently, what you just read, is that Morgan will be going to Laurel Park.
I perhaps misunderstood you. I thought in your opening remarks you said we do not use food as positive reinforcement. But in the video, you were clearly giving them treats when they did something right.
Absolutely, yes, we do use food as positive reinforcement. It is one of the many reinforcers that we have access to. We absolutely use food. What I was trying to say is that we do not limit their food based on behavior. So whether or not they perform behavior for us, they receive their diet. So I'm glad you cleared that up. Yes, you will see us feeding the animals during the shows, certainly. You'll also see us rubbing them or moving with them or hugging them or giving them a toy.
Kelly, in the wild, how long will a calf stay with a killer whale or a dolphin?
Two different questions there. So for killer whale, and also it really depends on the species of the calf. The sex of the calf. Okay? Killer whale and dolphin societies are similar in a lot of ways, so just answer it as in the cetacean society and the dolphin society. Killer whales are actually the largest member of the dolphin family. And in a killer whale society, the juvenile males are tolerated. And when they reach sexual maturity, they're sent on their way. Okay? And what you will find is either bachelor pods or groups of male animals that haven't really found a group to breed with, or you will find solo males who are breeding bulls. And that's how, in the wild, there's that great genetic diversity, because just like with elephants and with other animals that behave this way, the female is the matriarch. So we know what's real, right? The women are in charge. They can come up with their little nomenclature, but we're in charge. We know who comes first. So it's that way in the killer whale society. She will decide who and when will breed. A male will be invited into the pod if there is a cycling female and they believe that his genetics are appropriate. So that's the way it works. So if it's a male calf, it'll be tolerated until it's a juvenile. If it's a female calf, they will often stay around until there's a social hierarchy problem and somebody wants to be the biggest female in the pack. And that's when sometimes they'll split off. So they're very, very social animals. They are very social.
How has your handling of the killer whales changed since that unfortunate incident of a couple of years ago? And is that killer whale, that Tilikum, still in your show?
Yes, he is. I knew this would come up, and it was tragic for me. One of my very, very close friends, somebody I worked alongside for a long time, Tilikum is an animal. He's an amazing animal. I worked with him later that day, and I worked with him yesterday. He is performing in the shows, and that's the right thing for us. We did make a lot of modifications to our facility to make sure that nobody from the public or nobody from animal training would be close enough to Tilikum to have that tragic event repeat itself. We have changed our interaction with the animals. When that happened, obviously, it shook us to our very core. It had never happened at SeaWorld before. Tilikum was not an animal that we ever planned on doing water interaction with. Tilikum was an animal who came to us from a facility in the Northwest that said, we don't know exactly what we're doing with killer whales. We know you're the experts. Will you help us out? That's how we got the 4 animals that were housed in the facility that Tilikum came from. When he arrived, we knew from day one, he was already 9,000 pounds. He's 12,000 now. When we do interactions with our dogs, we start, as I told you with Makayo, 1 or 2 days old. As soon as mom is interested in allowing us to be close to the baby, which happens pretty quickly because of our reinforcement history with mom, we start that baby in our training program. And because Tilikum had never been exposed to that, we made the decision very early on we were not going to be in the water with him. It was unfortunate that Dawn ended up in the water with him that day. Her ponytail drifted into his mouth, and once he explored that opportunity, she was in the water. And then once she was in the water, he did not know how to behave. He had not been exposed to that. He did not have the reinforcement history associated with human beings in the water. Because it shook us to our core, we took it back, and we reevaluated each and everything we do with all of our killer whales, with all of our animals in the park, with all of our animals in the system. Right now, we're not in the water with the whales. Do I, as an animal trainer, it's the right way to take care of them? Absolutely. It's the right way to display them? Absolutely. Do I hope that we are planning on getting back in the water? Absolutely. Am I a part of all those discussions? Yes, I am. But we're not going to do it until we're absolutely convinced that we're doing it even safer than we were already doing it. For us as animal trainers, it's hard for us to put Tilikum in as everyone else. And I don't think that's what you've read a lot about. But this was an animal that wasn't in our training program, and we never planned on being in the water with him. So to apply a broad sweep and say that this is the way all the killer whales are, as the media is doing, it's not fair. It's not appropriate. And since we're on that, the next question is probably going to be, where are you on this whole OSHA thing? The truth is, I can't talk about it in detail because it is an ongoing hearing. But we're scheduled to go back second week in November, and having sat beside legal counsel through this whole thing as the corporate representative, what I'm here to say that you haven't read in the paper is we haven't had our shot yet. Anybody who's a lawyer in the room, they've presented their case. They have one more witness to go. We haven't stepped up to the plate, and I'm confident that we're going to be just fine.
In all of your discussions about, I'm sure you've had many conferences about this. If you had had that killer whale involved in that was involved in that unfortunate situation from a baby, from what you just said, in all of your discussions, would you have thought this would have less likely happened? Although she was in the water, the ponytail was there, and there was no experience there for what went on with the whale. But
Right.
do you think that if you had had this whale in as a baby, there would have been some other
Absolutely.
outcome?
I mean, we have in our system 6 whales that are adult males, that are juvenile to adult males that were performing very well, great water interaction prior to this. Several of them were born right here at SeaWorld Orlando.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly, for a magnificent presentation.